It's the Brad and John Show.
Brad and John Show for the 20th of August. This is the C Block, and if you are listening into the future, a lot of people listen to the show live between 7 and 8 o'clock morning. We do it live on 104.5 KSOQ, a.k.a. Westplex Talk, but we also stream it, and we also put it into the future, which we will be doing in about 35, 40 minutes from now, and it goes up on the bjshow.co website as a podcast and on the bjshow.us site as a video on YouTube. And in the B block, which precedes the C block, isn't it interesting how that works, John?
It's amazing.
We talked about the fact that I had a breaking story and John yawned and said, that was news last week. And we talked about the fact that Steve Ehlmann may be back in the race. So John said, Brad, every time you have Bill Eigel on the phone, you harass him and you make fun of him and you call him names. Why don't you do the same thing to Mike Elam? I go, Mike's a nice guy, but you know what? We're going to call Mike and see if he'll answer the phone and talk to us on this. And we'll see. Here's the phone ringing one time. See if he picks up.
Hey, Brad, how are you?
Mike Elam, you're on the radio, so no potty mouth, okay?
I find it funny that you always say that. What do I say that makes you feel that's a disclaimer that needs to be done?
John, our Mike, you and I are radio guys. We know we have to stay legal. There's that rule that we have to inform callers that they're live on the air. You know what I'm saying?
It's all good, man.
Okay, we're in the C block, and John's listening right now. John does his top three in the A block. I do my top three in the B block. And the top three, the number one was that Steve Ehlmann may be back in the race. And I said to John, should we call Mike Elam and find out? And I say, why don't we? So I dialed your number, and here's Mike Elam. So, Mike, this was a story. John said it was in the Missouri Scout last week. What's the scoop, Mike Elam?
There is no scoop, Brad Hildebrand. I know Steve is concerned about a bunch of people being in the race and everything fragmenting out, and it makes a pathway for Bill Eigel. I know that. He said that publicly, so that's not a secret. It's kind of like how you ended up with Denny Hoskins winning the Secretary of State primary last year with 24% of the vote. You have 8 people who were decent candidates who ran, fragmented the vote out, and only took 24% to win the office. So I don't know what Steve's going to do. I don't know that Steve knows what he's going to do at this point. I think he's looking at all the options. I know there's some things that Steve thought he would have done by now that were important to him, that he wanted to get done, but it's taking longer than what he wanted. The number one issue being that regional police training center that he really thought was going to get done last year, but due to a number of factors outside of his control, it's been delayed. So I just talked to Councilman Mark Harder at St. Louis County yesterday about that, and it could take up to 3 years for that development to get done. And Steve has really been the face of that 4-county partnership this whole way through. And I know it's very important to him, and I know it's something that he wants to get done. Maybe that's one of the things that's driving it. Honestly, I don't know where he's going to end up. I don't know that he does. I mean, he started off saying, I'm not going to run again 3 years ago. And over the last year, if you've heard Steve speak, he's migrated that to, I don't want to run again. That's different than I'm not running again. So I think what it is if he's feeling like he didn't get everything done that he wants to get done, and he's the one who's going to be able to get it across the finish line, maybe he does. But I know that's a non-answer, but I just don't know that there is an answer as we sit here today. I know everything's on the table and everything's being considered. So,
okay, Mike.
Obviously, I'm watching this closer than anybody, Brad.
Yeah,
I have a vested interest in what happened.
Right.
I will tell you this, and I don't think this is breaking any news for John, for you, or anybody. Steve has been my mentor through my entire political career. We've actually known each other for 23 years, and he's been a mentor for me personally and publicly for a very long time. If Steve does throw his hat in the ring, I will run for re-election for county council. I will never run against Steve Ehlmann. I love working with Steve. I love being a partner with Steve. I told you guys before, I've been in an apprenticeship program for the county executive job for the last 12 years. If he feels like there's more things that he needs to get done and we could get done together, I'm riding alongside Steve and we'll get it done. I'm never going to leave him. I'm never going to pick anybody over him, and I'm never going to run against him.
Okay, so
I hope he changes his mind. He said he's out and changes his mind. I hope he doesn't change his mind and he confirms he's out and he endorses me. But Steve does everything on Steve's timetable. Now, and you're really hard to hear, by the way.
Okay, let me. You hear me any better now? I've got a problem.
That's a whole lot better.
Okay.
Yes.
We have an equipment problem here, which is a whole long story. Okay.
What? There's an equipment problem?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, in a radio station, yeah. Okay.
No.
Which leads to ask is, let's give some what-if scenarios. If Steve would say, I'm back in, does Bill Eigel bow out and does Mr. Law bow out, or they go head-to-head with Steve Ehlmann?
Man, I have no idea. I really don't. I mean, I think anybody who, even if you're a Bill Eigel fan, right? If you look at this race, I think if you're willing to be honest about it, everybody knows Bill Eigel has no desire to be the county executive of St. Charles County. The issues that Bill has ever talked about for the last 10 years are not municipal issues. It's not what drives him. The things that drive Bill, and this is Bill's words, so I'm judging Bill by Bill's words. They're state issues and they're federal issues. That's where his passion is. And I get it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think the only reason Bill is running for county executive is to give him a platform to be relevant for his next office, whether he's going to primary Mike Kehoe in 28, whether he's going to wait for Ann Wagner to go away and he's going to run there, or he's going to run for another state level office. Who knows? But I think it's fair to say, if you're objectively looking at it, Bill, his desire is not municipal government. That's not where he wants to end up. For Jason, I have no idea. I really don't know. I mean, Jason talks about crime. Crime's his number one issue. Brad, we have the lowest crime rate in St. Charles County in the entire St. Louis region and one of the lowest in the state of Missouri. So if your goal is low crime, congratulations, you've accomplished it. Like, it's done. It's something you have to stay on and you have to be passionate about it. You can't let it go. But you're already winning that race. So there are other issues that are driving. 70% of our households in St. Charles County, this will blow your mind. 70% of the households in St. Charles County have no children 18 and under living in the household. 70%. Tell me any community long term that's going to survive when you have no kids.
Mike, I talk about this all the time, the whole thing with the negative birth rate and things like that. And that's an interesting statistic. Now, nationally, do you know the national number for that?
I don't.
That would be interesting to see, because what you're essentially saying is you've got to, what is it a lot of what the term sort of went away. You know what a DINK is? You ever heard the term DINK?
I haven't.
Dual income, no kids. The idea being it's like professional husband, wife, and they do well, but they don't have any kids.
And that's really what you're seeing from younger people these days. And
right.
When I say younger people, the older I get, the older young people get.
I hear that.
So I'll say basically that early 30s down, right?
Right.
They're getting married later, if they're getting married at all. They're having fewer kids, if they're having kids at all. They're coming out of college with the most debt they've ever had. This is the most in-debt generation we have ever seen. They can't afford the down payment to buy a house. In St. Charles County, our housing is so expensive. That's why they're all moving into these apartments and townhomes and looking for other housing options, because traditional housing they can't afford to get into. But make no mistake, every county in America is in a race and in a battle to find out how their county can be the most attractive to young families. The health of your community is very much dependent upon the growth of young families in your community all the way down the road, you've got to have a good spread out. Just like your financial advisor would tell you, you need to have a portfolio that is balanced so you're not over leveraged in any one area. Your community needs that too. So we're in a battle with every other community in the United States of America to become the place for young families to choose to put down roots and grow. And that's not easy. I mean, that's something that we're going to have to get all the stakeholders around the table and say, how can we be more attractive? Is that more Frankie Martin type developments like there are in Cottleville? You know, do they want more experiential things that we can put in the community? Their young families' big issue is not cut my personal property tax. That's not their issue. They want other things. We have safe communities. We have A+ rated schools all across our county. How are we going to get them to choose us to be able to afford to live here, put down roots, and grow the next generation of St. Charles County? Sorry, man, that was a long answer.
Mike, you know what the problem we do have in St. Charles County?
What's that?
A school district superintendent issue. That's what we have in St. Charles County.
You know, for 40 years, I could always count on the fact that you couldn't say that about one school district in our county. But, you know, what's sad about school districts, and this isn't unique to us, it's across the United States, a superintendent, average superintendent has a lifespan of 3 to 4 years. That's it. After 3 to 4 years, a superintendent generally moves on. Jason Seifert at St. Charles School District is now the longest serving superintendent in our region. And he's doing a really good job in St. Charles, but he has a completely different issue that he's trying to deal with because about 7 years ago, St. Charles School District had 6,000 kids in it. When I toured it earlier this year, it had 3,600. That's almost a 50% drop in enrollment.
No kidding.
In less than 10 years. So, dude, I'm telling you, it's an issue that people aren't talking about. Everybody wants to talk about taxes and crime and stuff like that. Your community, any community in the United States for the most part, is facing this because we have a lower birth rate than we've ever had, and we're dying faster than we've ever died in the last few generations. So it's one of those kind of things where people aren't really talking about this, but the health of your community is really going to be dependent on, can you attract that next generation to put down roots in your community and grow from there? It's going to change your school districts. It's going to change your economic picture. Who's spending money in your community? I mean, St. Charles County government is basically a consumption-driven county. What I mean by that is we are almost 65% of St. Charles County government is funded by sales tax revenue. So if your people aren't spending money in your county, then you're not getting the tax revenue. Your real estate tax bill in St. Charles County for St. Charles County government for the last few years has been zero. We've talked about that before on this show. Our personal property tax, St. Charles County only gets 2.5% of your personal property tax revenue, and it goes to two funds that are already designated. It doesn't go to general fund. So it goes to the Road and Bridge Fund, and it goes to dispatch and alarm. So think 911, communication systems, first responders. That's dispatch and alarm. Road and Bridge are how we have done $1 billion worth of road projects in the last 30 years in St. Charles County. But half of that Road and Bridge Fund is shared with the local municipalities. So the county doesn't even get to keep all of that money. Half of the money that comes in on Road and Bridge gets spread out from St. Charles to Forestville on all the different road projects that they put into the road board. And a road board, which is put together by designees from all across the county, they make the decision on what road projects are worthy to be built and one need a little more work before they get approved. I mean, this is how county government works. It's not exciting. It's really not. But it's the foundation of how your community works and how your community functions. But it's not sexy, man. It's not the stuff that gets headlines and the Post-Dispatch is going to write about and Channel 4 is going to do a story on, and it normally doesn't make the Brad and John show.
Mike, I don't
You
mean
called me while I'm sitting in Rockford, Illinois, so there you go.
Mike, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm going to tell you something that probably nobody's ever told you before.
What's that?
We have to run because we're up against a hard break.
All right, guys. Have a great day. It's always nice to talk to you. John, I hope you're doing well.
Bye, Mike. Talk to you later.
Bye.
John, we're over time. Your reactions?
It was a fantastic conversation you had with them, and I think that's news. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised that Mike wouldn't run against Steve Ehlmann. But, yeah, I mean, some powerful comments about both Bill Eigel and Jason Law there.
Is any of that going to make the statewide news? Is any of that going to be on, like, the johncombest.com list?
Yeah, I plan on assuming you execute, which you have been doing lately, and actually get stuff up in a decent period of time. Yeah, and because you're now doing a show with someone that people listen to, I think other folks will be talking about this, Brett.
John, you're always so complimentary of me. Okay, lots of things to talk about. And you know what? I'll be honest with you. What Mike said, two things he said, and then we got to go.
Yeah.
70% of the households in St. Charles County, no kids. Isn't that what he said?
Yeah, that's surprisingly high number to me, Brad.
And he said the St. Charles School District's down to 3,600 kids? I mean...
Yeah, well, I can believe the hollowing out of that district. Who wants to live in that area, Brad? You know what goes on around the casino? It's disgusting.
John, there's some very nice areas of St.
Yeah,
Charles
I know.
City.
Sure. There's great people in North County, too. We're over time, Brad. I'll see you tomorrow.
John, I would live either in St. Charles City or North County in a New York
Or Kinlock. You do it every day.
John's always complimentary.